Previously seen how we can use a mathematical technique called a unit analysis to work out problems like this. Problems where we're converting from one unit to another. So in this question, we are converting from 7 moles of electrons to number of electrons, so moles to electrons. So we begin by writing down what we know. We know we are starting with 7 moles. Okay, and what we then do is we set up a fraction like this. So we're going to multiply it by a fraction, which has a numerator and a denominator. And into this fraction, we put the relationship between the things we're trying to convert between. So say, for example, moles to electrons. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that the unit that we're starting with is always in the denominator, so moles. And the other unit, electrons, is in the numerator. The reason for this is when moles is in the numerator, in the denominator here, this allows us to cancel out this unit here, and it allows us to leave this, which is what we wanted to convert to. So this is the only unit left, and therefore we know that the answer is in electrons, and it's right because that's what it asks us to do, convert to electrons. The next thing we're going to do is think about the relationship between the number of electrons and the number of moles. Well, what we've learned before is that 1 mole of anything is equal to 6.02 times 10 to the power of 23 of that thing. So 1 mole contains that many electrons. We've now got a sum to do. You put it in your calculator, 7 times 6.02 by 10 to the 23 over 1. And the final answer for that would be this here, 4.214 times 10 to the power of 24. Now, if you haven't already watched the video on this, then that's going to be difficult, and I suggest that you go and do that now. But in today, we've done this already. We're going to take this idea and make it a little bit more complicated, or more useful actually, because this allows us to do more things. Let's say we were given a problem like this. How many electrons are in 1 mole of lithium atoms? Well, in this case, we have an extra layer of difficulty here because there isn't just 1 electron per lithium atom. Now, that might not make sense just yet. But in this case, what we first have to do is, well, let's find out how many atoms we have and then find out how many electrons are in each of those atoms. So this adds an extra unit analysis. It adds an extra layer of unit analysis. We begin by doing the same thing. We write down what we have, 1 mole. So we begin by writing that down, 1 mole. And before we can find out how many electrons we have to find out how many atoms we have. So that's just the exact same as before. We set up our unit analysis. We create a fraction, and we make sure that mole is in the bottom of the fraction, and we make sure that atoms is in, because that's what we're talking about, atoms, we make sure atoms is in top. And again, we've already learned the relationship between moles and atoms. If we have 1 mole of atoms, that means we have 6.02 by 10 to the power of 23 of them. Now notice, that allows us to cancel moles with moles, but that's given us atoms. And that's not what our final answer is, because we want how many electrons. Our final answer should be in electrons. So that means we need to do another fraction, multiplied by, where this time we've got atoms left here, so we want to get rid of that. So we put atoms on the bottom down here so that they will cancel out like that. And this time we want to know the relationship between atoms and the number of electrons. How many electrons in each atom? So if I had 1 atom, how many electrons would that be? Now, this depends entirely on what the atom is. The atom is lithium, so we need to do a little bit of rough work here. If I have a lithium atom, what do I know about it? I know that its atomic number is 3, which means that it's got 3 electrons. So we're linking to a previous idea that we've done before. We've got 3 lithium atoms, so each lithium atom is 3 electrons. So that's the relationship here. 1 atom contains 3 electrons. Now, if it wasn't lithium, if it was a different atom, then this number up here would be different. But look what we've done. We've canceled all the units, and we've just left us with the unit we wanted in our answer. So we know we've done this right. So that gives us a 3-part sum to do. 1 by 6.02 by 10 to the 23 over 1 times 3 over 1. And when you do that, put that in your calculator. If you want to pause the video and practice doing that now, pause the video, do it on your calculator. Okay, so you should only be watching if you've had a go at this and you have an answer. The correct answer here should be 1.806 times 10 to the power of 24. Now you guys are going to be practicing one of them yourself in a second, and if you need to, you can come back to this. Before we do that, we're just going to take it one more level of detail, and we're going to make it just a little bit harder than that, okay? What about this one? How many electrons are in 1 mole of water molecules? Okay, so how would we go about doing this? Well, this time we want to find electrons. We know we've got 1 mole of water molecules. Let's start by what we know. We know we've got 1 mole. We're starting with 1 mole. And we know at the end, if we were to fast forward all the way to the end over here, we want our answer in a certain amount of electrons. But there's a few steps before we get to that. First of all, I want to find out, I've got 1 mole of atoms. How many molecules? Sorry, I've got 1 mole of water molecules. How many molecules is that? So let's set that up with our fraction. I want to get rid of mole, so I'm going to put that on the bottom. And on top, I'm going to put molecules. So I'm converting mole to molecules. Now, in 1 mole of molecules, it will be, well, 1 mole of anything is always that same number. It could be eggs, it could be molecules, it could be atoms, it could be electrons. It's always 6.02 by 10 to the power of 23. So watch what that allows me to do. I've cancelled moles, so now I've converted it to molecules. But I'm not finished yet because I want my answer in electrons. So the next thing I've got to do is add that 3rd layer of conversion. So set up my fraction like this. And I know that I'm going to have to get rid of molecules now. So molecules is going to have to be in the denominator of this next bit. Molecules. Okay. And if I have 1 molecule, how many electrons are in that molecule? Well, then I need to do some rough work again, because here I've got water. Water has 3 atoms in it. It's got H, and O. HHO, 2 H's and an O. So if I was to go to my periodic table, look at the periodic table, I see the atomic number of hydrogen is 1. That means it's got 1 proton. It's got 1 proton. It's got 1 electron. The second hydrogen is the same, so it also has 1 electron. And the oxygen, I go to my periodic table, I look it up, its atomic number is 8. So that means it's got 8 protons, and therefore it's got 8 electrons. So if I add these together, I get my total number of electrons in a water molecule is equal to 10. So that means that there are 10 electrons for every 1 molecule. Watch what I can do now. I can cancel molecule, and now I have my sum to do. Okay, so 1 by 6.02 by 10 to the 23 over 1 times 10 over 1. And when I do that, I'm going to get my answer is equal to, I actually haven't done this myself, so pause the video, you guys, and do that sum now, see what you get. Okay, and what you should have got there is 6.02 times 10 to the power of 24 electrons. So if you got that, well done, you've done it right. Now, I'm going to give you some practice to do, and I suggest that if you need to, that you come back and look at how I've done my examples, or alternatively, if you like to keep your own copy of these examples, go back through the video and write them down if you want, somewhere where you have examples to look at, and then you are going to be doing this question 6 for me, please. So it says here, how many electrons are, first of all, in 1 mole of lithium atoms, then in 2 moles of carbon atoms, so this time it's starting with 2 moles of atoms, and a carbon atom. So think about that. What numbers do you need? 1 mole of carbon dioxide molecule. So that's like the last example I just did. And then half a mole of methane molecules. And if you're not sure what the formula for methane is, it's CH4. So 1 carbon, 4 hydrogens. That's what you need to know there. Okay, so that's it, guys. So go through the answers to them in the class the next day, and I'll see you there.